You are listening to PastThink.com audiobook. Please like and subscribe, thank you. Chapter 42. The false Li Kuei commits highway robbery. The Black Whirlwind kills 4 tigers on Yiling. Likui had asked for the 3 conditions, and Song Jiang replied, when you go to Ishui County, in Izhou Prefecture, Shandong Province to bring your mother here you must not drink wine on the way. That is the first condition. Secondly, you must go by yourself, because you have a hasty disposition, and I am afraid that nobody wants to go with you. Thirdly, you must not take those axes with you, and on the way you must be discreet, and quickly get back here. I can easily comply with those conditions, said Li Kuei. You need not worry. I should like to leave today. On that day he got his baggage ready, armed himself with swords. He took 1 large ingot and about 5 small pieces of silver. He drank a few cups of wine, took leave of his companions, and then went down the hill and across the lake. After his departure the leaders were assembled in the main hall when Song Jiang spoke. I am afraid that our younger brother Li Kuei will get into trouble. I do not know whether there is any man here from his village. If so he might follow him and report to us what happens on the way. Zhu Gui comes from the same village as Li Kuei, said Du Qian. I had forgotten that, said Song Jiang. Of course they recognized each other as such at the Bailong Temple near Jiangzhou. He immediately sent a man to summon Zhu Gui, and soon the latter arrived from his inn. Our brother, Li Kuei, has just gone to Ishui County to bring his mother here. No man was sent to accompany him on account of his bad temper when drunk. I understand that you are from his native district, and therefore I should be glad if you would follow him, and watch what might happen to him. I am a Ishui County man, said Zhu Gui. I have a younger brother who keeps a wine shop in that town just outside the West Gate. This man Li Kuei lived near a village called Baizhang in that district. He has an elder brother named Li Da who is in regular employment. Li Kuei is a fierce and stupid man. Some time ago he committed murder at his village, and had to leave home, and dared not return. I have no objection to follow him, and look after him, but who will look after my inn while I am away? I have not been home for a long time, and should very much like to meet my brother again. You need not worry about your inn as I will send Ho Jian and Shi Yong to look after it during your absence, said Song Jiang. This was all arranged, and Zhu Gui started off on his way to Ishui County. Li Kuei traveled by himself, and duly reached his destination. He had stuck to the conditions laid down by Song Jiang, and had not taken any wine on the way. At the West Gate he saw a big crowd of men reading a proclamation posted on the wall. He entered the crowd and listened to a man who was reading the proclamation for the information of the illiterate crowd. It read as follows: 1. There is a thief called Song Jiang of Yunqing County. 2. Also a jailer named Dai Zong, from the prison at Jiangzhou. 3. Also another thief named Li Kuei, of Ishui County. As soon as he heard his own name Li Kuei got excited, and did not know what to do when a man embraced him saying, Elder brother Zhang, what are you doing here? Upon looking at the man he recognized him as Zhu Gui, the dry land crocodile, and asked, and what are you doing here? Come with me and we will discuss matters, said Zhu Gui. They went together outside the town, and stopped at an inn in a small hamlet, where they entered a small room at the back of the premises. Zhu Gui pointed at Li Kuei, what a nerve you have. That proclamation was offering a reward of 10,000 strings of cash for the arrest of Song Jiang, 5,000 strings for Dai Zong, and 3,000 strings of cash for your arrest. Why did you stop there looking at such a notice? Should any man recognize you, you would be arrested at once. Song Jiang was afraid that you would get into trouble, and sent me here to watch over you. I left the mountain a day after your departure, and arrived here a day before you. What has delayed you? It is due to Song Jiang ordering me not to drink wine, said Li Kuei. I walked slowly because of that. Do you know anyone at this inn? Where is your home in this place? This inn belongs to my younger brother, Zhu Fu, and I used to live here. I was once a merchant, but lost all my capital, and so went to Liangshan Marsh. I have not been here since that time. He called for his brother and introduced Li Kuei to him. Zhu Fu then brought in some wine and invited them to partake of same. Our elder brother gave me an order not to drink wine, said Li Kuei. But as I am no longer on the road and have reached my destination, I may drink 2 cups of wine now. Zhu Gui raised no objection to this, and they stayed eating and drinking there until nearly 2 a.m. It was a bright moonlight night and Li Kuei wished to go, but Zhu Gui said, "You had better avoid the byroad, but turn round to the east when you come to a clump of trees, and that will bring you to your home at Baizhong village. You must bring your mother here, without delay, and we will set off at once for Liangshan Marsh." "I will go along the byroads, and will lose no time," replied Li Kuei. "By that unfrequented road there are tigers and also bandits," said Zhu Gui. "What am I afraid of?" asked Li Kuei. He then armed himself with his 2 weapons, and left the 2 brothers. When he had gone about 3 li it was getting daylight, he saw a hare leap out of the grass at the side of the path, and race off along the road. He pursued his way, and in about 2 li came to the clump of trees, with leaves of red autumn tints. As he turned round the trees he met a big man who shouted, "You will be aware that if you pay us money we will not interfere with your baggage." The man wore a coat of rough cloth, and had a red silk turban. His face was sallow, and he held an axe in each hand. Li Kuei shouted, "Who are you that dare commit highway robbery here? If I told you my name you would be frightened. I am called the Black Whirlwind. If you pay our toll we will spare your life." Li Kuei laughed loudly, "How dare you use my own name in this way? Who are you and where do you come from, you bare-faced rascal?" He took his halberd and advanced towards the man. The man saw that he had a very strong opponent, and tried to retreat, but Li Kuei struck him with his halberd so that he fell to the ground. Li Kuei put his foot on the man's breast and asked, "Do you know me now?" The man on the ground said, "Please forgive me, sir. I am Li Kuei, the Black Whirlwind. Why do you use my name in this way?" The man replied, "My name is Li, but I am not the Black Whirlwind. You have a great name, and if I use it people are afraid of me. It was because I found out the power of your name that I became a highwayman. I only stop single individuals, and as soon as they hear your name they drop their baggage and run away. I do not kill people, and yet I make a little profit. My name is Li Kuei, and I live at the village a little up the road." Li Kuei said, "You are a real prick. You seize travelers' baggage, and also carry axes in both hands like me, so that you injure my reputation. You can taste one of my axes," so saying he seized an axe out of the man's hand. Li Kuei called out, "Sir, if you kill me you will kill 2 persons." "How do you make that out?" asked Li Kuei, staying the blow. "At home I support my mother who is 90 years of age, and this is my only means of helping her in her old age," said Li Kuei. "I never injure people, but only make them afraid. If you kill me, my old mother will die of starvation." Li Kuei, who never twinkled his eyes in chopping off people's heads, paused and thought when he heard this. Here am I trying to succor my old mother, and yet killing a man who supports his old mother. Heaven will not allow me to live if I do this. No. No. I will forgive this man. He took his foot off Li Kuei, who saluted him. "I will let you off," said Li Kuei, "but in future you must not make use of my name." "As you have spared my life," said Li Kuei, "I will give up this kind of life, and earn an honest living in some other way." "You are a filial son," said Li Kuei, "so I will give you 10 taels of silver to enable you to start a business." He did this, and then went on his way. Li Kuei could not help laughing. That fellow was quite in my hands, and yet I have started him on a fresh life. He walked on, and about 10 a.m. he was both thirsty and hungry. The footpath was quite isolated without a single house within sight. But after going some distance he saw 2 small straw huts a long way off. He went towards the huts, and when near he saw a woman come from behind the hut. She had a flower in her hair, and was well rouged. He spoke to her, "Sister, I am a traveler, and cannot come across an inn. I am very hungry. If you can supply me with food and wine I will pay you well. The woman dared not refuse this when she saw the build of Li Kuei. I have no wine, but can find you a little food. That will do, said Li Kuei. Let me have a good meal as I am damned hungry. Will a peck of rice be enough? She asked. 3 pecks would be better. The woman took the rice, washed it in the stream, and then boiled it. While she was doing this, Li Kuei went to the back of the house to relieve his bowels, and there saw a man trudging along. Just then the woman came out of the back door to get some vegetables, and she asked the man, "What is the trouble with your leg?" "You very nearly saw the last of me," replied the man. "Of all the damned luck. I went to that place and waited nearly a fortnight for a traveler to pass, but there was nothing doing. Today, however, a traveler arrived, but do you think who it was? It was Li Kuei, the real black whirlwind. Of all people it had to be that donkey's prick. He knocked me down with a blow of his halberd, and intended to kill me. But I deceived him by saying, 'If you kill me, you will kill too.' He asked me for an explanation, and I told him falsely that I had an old mother at home who depended on my support. If I was killed she would die of hunger. The fool believed me, and spared my life. He even gave me money to turn over a new leaf. So when he let me go I did not come straight here as he might have found me out, but instead I went up the hills and made a long detour." "Don't talk so loudly," the woman said. "A man came here and asked for some food, and it may be the same man. He is sitting outside the front door. You go and have a look at him. If he is the same man, then go and get some drug to put in his food, and when it takes effect we can kill him. We can then get his money, which will enable us to live in the town and enter into trade, much better than being mere highwayman here." Li Kuei thought, "What a rascal. I spared his life, and even gave him money, and yet he plans to kill me. Heaven cannot allow such man to live." He went round the corner to the back door where they were talking. As soon as Li Kuei saw Li Kuei he tried to escape, but Li Kuei seized hold of him. The woman saw this, and went through the house to the front door. Li Kuei knocked Li Kuei on the ground, and then taking his sword cut off the man's head. He then went inside the house to seize the woman, but she had disappeared. He however searched in the rooms, found the place where they kept the money and woman's ornaments, and he took these. He noticed that the rice was well boiled, but there were no vegetables. Li Kuei thought, "There's perfectly good meat here," and cut off 2 pieces of meat from Li Kuei's leg, and roasted them over the stove, eating as he cooked. When he had eaten enough, he placed the corpse in the house, and set the whole place on fire. He then continued on his way, and reached his village of East Dongdian about 5 p.m. He soon found his home, pushed open the door and entered. His mother called out from her bed, "Who is that?" Li Kuei saw that his mother was blind, and was sitting on the bed reciting her prayers. He called out, "Mother, your iron ox has returned. My boy, you have been absent for a long time. Where have you been employed? Your elder brother works as a servant, but the wages he gets are hardly enough to support us. I have often thought of you, and have wept so much that I have become blind in both eyes. What are you doing now?" Li Kuei thought, "If I tell her that I am a brigand from Liangshan Marsh she will not go with me. I must tell her some fibs." So he said, "Mother, I am in government employment, and have come to take you away with me." "Splendid. But how can I go?" "I will carry you on my back to the road where we can find a cart." "Well, wait until your elder brother comes, and then we will discuss the matter." "Why wait?" asked Li Kuei. "I am going with you." Just then it happened that his elder brother Li Da entered the room carrying an earthenware jar containing rice for his mother. When Li Kuei saw his brother he kowtowed and said, "Brother, I have not seen you for years." Li Da spoke abusively, "Why have you returned? Much trouble you will bring here again?" His mother answered, "Your brother is now in government employment, and has specially come to take me away with him." "Mother, don't believe his farts," said Li Da. "Some time ago he killed a man, and I was arrested, and wore a kang for it. I have had much suffering for him. I have heard that he has joined the brigands at Liangshan Marsh, and recently rescued some of them from an execution ground at Jiangzhou. A warrant is out for his arrest, and as they have not found him they wanted to arrest me. My master pleaded for me at the Yamen, and said that my brother Li Kuei left home 10 years ago, and we have not heard anything of him since then. He thought that perhaps the bandits were using the name of Li Kuei falsely. My master gave money to the officials at the Yamen, and that is why they have not arrested me. A proclamation has been issued offering a reward of 3,000 strings of cash for the arrest of my brother, Li Kuei. Now, he returns home, and talks nonsense to you. Do not worry, replied Li Kuei. How would it be if we all went to Liangshan Marsh, and had a good time there? Li Do was angry at this, and tried to strike his brother, but was aware that he could not overcome him. He then threw the earthenware jar on the floor, and ran out of the room. He has gone to report my arrival, said Li Kuei to himself, so I must leave at once before they arrive to arrest me. My brother has never seen much money, so I will leave 50 taels of silver on the bed for him. When he sees it he will not be so keen to witness my arrest. He did this and said, Mother, I will now carry you on my back. Where are you going to? She asked. You need not ask, anyhow it is a much better place than this, said Li Kuei. He then lifted his mother on his back, and left the house with her. Now Li Da had run and informed his master of the return of his brother, and soon came back with about 10 farm laborers. When he entered the room he found nothing but a piece of silver on the bed. He then considered, my brother has left this money for me. Where can he hide now? He may come with other men from Liangshan Marsh. If I try to overtake him I shall only get into trouble. As the laborers could not find Li Kuei they did not know what to do, but Li Da told them, my brother has evidently gone, and carried off my mother. There are many byroads about here, but how can we find which way he has gone? The men saw that Li Da did not know what to do, so after a rest they all returned to the farm. Li Kuei, carrying his mother on his back, chose the quietest paths, and towards evening arrived at the foot of a range of mountains. He recognized the place as Yiling, and knew that if he crossed the range there were farmhouses on the other side. The moonlight was bright, and he had no difficulty in slowly ascending the mountain path. His mother asked him to find some water, as she was quite thirsty, and Li Kuei assured her that as soon as they had crossed the mountain he would find a house where they could rest and get food. His mother replied that at the last meal she had had only dry rice without any liquid, and so was very thirsty. He replied, my throat also burns like a fire, and my breath is like smoke issuing from my mouth. You wait until I get to the summit, when I will have a look around for some water. I feel as though I must die. I am so thirsty, said his mother. I am getting very tired, mother, replied Li Kuei. When he reached the summit he put his mother down by the side of a big green boulder, and left his sword there, and went off to look for water. He soon heard the sound of running water, and after a few turns he came to a small stream. He had a good drink, using his hands as a cup, and then thought, how can I carry some water to my mother? He looked around on all sides, and at last espied a temple in the distance. He made his way there through the dense bushes. At last he reached the temple, and saw that it was called, the Great Sage Temple of Sizhou. In front of it was a stone incense urn, and he seized hold of it with the idea of using it to carry the water. But the stone urn was one solid piece with the base, and he could not move it. At this he got angry, and using his full strength at last rooted the stone out of the ground. He then lifted it, and broke the top part from the base on the stone steps leading up to it. He carried the stone urn off to the stream where he thoroughly washed it, and cleaned it out with grass. He then half filled it with water, and carried it off in both hands. He followed the same way back, but had great difficulties in making his way with such an awkward load. When he reached the big green boulder, however, he was astounded not to see his mother although his sword was still there. He called out aloud for her, but there was no response. He became very anxious, as although he looked all around carefully he could find no traces or clue of her departure. But when he had gone a distance of about 30 steps he found the grass covered with blood. He trembled with fear now, but followed the marks. These at last brought him to a cave where he saw 2 tiger cubs inside eating a human leg. Shaking with anger he thought, I came from Liangshan Marsh to take my mother, and carried her here on my back, but it seems that she has been eaten by the tigers. His mind was inflamed with passion, and his face glared with a fierce look, his mustaches standing out like porcupine's quills. Seizing his sword he slashed at the tiger cubs. They growled, showed their teeth and claws as they reared on their hind legs, and rushed at him. He killed one with a single cut of his sword, and the other cub retreated to the cave. Li Kuei followed with sword in hand and killed the second cub. He then turned round and saw the tigress outside racing towards the cave. He said, So you are the damned beast who has devoured my mother. He threw down his long sword, and took the dagger from his waist. The tigress stopped at the entrance, lashing its tail from side to side, and not having seen Li Kuei, turned round facing outside. Li Kuei jumped forward and stabbed the beast in its rear, driving the dagger into the hilt and penetrating its stomach, a mighty lunge typical of the rage that he felt. The tigress roared and leapt away with the dagger sticking in her body, and galloped away. Li Kuei picked up his sword and left the cave. As the tigress had galloped off wounded, a strong wind sprung up, shook the trees as in a big storm. There is an ancient saying, clouds originate with dragons, whereas winds originate with tigers. Li Kuei thought, I cannot tell them who I am because there is a reward offered for my arrest. So he replied, I'm a traveler, and last night I was crossing the mountain with my mother. While I went to get some water for her, a tiger attacked and ate her. So I found the tiger's den, and there killed 2 cubs, and afterwards 2 fully grown tigers. I slept last night in the great sage temple, and have just come from there. We don't believe that, cried the hunters. How could one man kill 4 tigers? We might believe you killing 2 cubs, but to kill 2 fully grown tigers is really a big achievement. We have been beaten by the officials for not killing those 2 tigers. Those tigers have been on the mountains for a long time, and during the last 5 months nobody has dared go that way. We do not believe what you say. You need not try to humbug us. I do not belong to this district, said Li Kuei. Why should I humbug you? If you don't believe me, then I will go and show you the dead tigers, and you can get them carried down the mountain. If this is true, we shall be much indebted to you, said the hunters. They blew whistles, and soon about 50 men had assembled at that spot. They got poles and ropes, and then all accompanied Li Kuei up the mountain. There sure enough they found the bodies of the 4 tigers, and carried them down the mountain. The hunters reported the matter to the head of the first village they came to, and they then all adjourned to the big house of the local wealthy man, Old Chow. This man was a clerk in the county yamen, and had made his wealth by extortion in his own village. He was disliked and also feared by his own neighbors. Yet he was always talking of loyalty and filial piety, so that he was well known as a hypocrite. As soon as he heard what had happened, he invited Li Kuei into the hall, where he asked for full details of the remarkable event. After his had all been recited, he asked for the name and home address of Li Kuei. My name is Zhang, replied Li Kuei, but people generally call me Courageous Zhang. You are certainly courageous, said Old Chow. If you had not a large gall you could not have killed 4 tigers. He then gave orders for a big feast to be provided in honor to the courageous Zhang. It was soon known in the villages around that 4 tigers had been killed by one man, and in no time the people were crowding into the village, and into Chow's house to see the tigers. There they gazed at the great hero, who was being entertained in the hall by Chow. Among the people was the wife of Li Kuei, whose husband Li Kuei had killed a few days ago. She had run away to her parents' home, and when she heard the news about the tigers she followed the crowd. She recognized Li Kuei and immediately returned home, and reported the matter to her parents. They went at once to the village chief, who was given to know that Li Kuei was the criminal for whose arrest a reward had been offered. He secretly sent a messenger asking Old Chow to come and discuss a very urgent matter. When Chow received the message, he decided not to tell Li Kuei, but merely said that he wished to retire and change his clothes, but when outside the room he hurried straight off to the other village. This man who has killed the tigers, said the village chief, is Li Kuei, the Black Whirlwind of Baijiang Village, and there is a summon out for his arrest. In that case you must make careful inquiries among the people, and make sure of the matter before we act. It will be an easy matter to arrest him when we are sure about his identity. If he is not the man, then we should only make trouble by arresting him. There is a woman here, Madam Li, who recognizes him, said the chief. He came to her house and later he killed her husband. As that appears to be conclusive, said Chow, we had better entertain him at the feast, and then ask him whether he prefers to go to the magistrate and ask for a reward for killing the tigers, or whether he prefers to receive the reward in our village. If he objects to go to the magistrate for the reward, we can assume that he is guilty. Then we must press him to take plenty of wine, and get him drunk when we can easily tie him up. Then we can go to the magistrate's yamen and ask them to send a police inspector to arrest him, and so there can be no failure. The village chief agreed to this, and made arrangements accordingly with his men. Chow returned home, and there resumed his seat at the table with Li Kuei. He said, I hope you are not offended at my leaving you. Please make yourself quite at home. Loosen your dress and put your dagger at one side. I left my dagger in the belly of one of the tigers, said Li Kuei, and only have the scabbard here. When they cut the tiger open, I hope they will find my dagger and return it to me. Never mind that, said old Chow. I have a very good dagger here which I will present to you. Li Kuei thereupon took off the scabbard and belt and handed them to a servant. Chow ordered a fresh supply of food and wine. The village chief, the hunters, and several other men were present at the feast, and they each in turn toasted Li Kuei. During the feast, old Chow asked Li Kuei whether he would prefer to receive the reward for killing the tigers at the magistrate yamen, or in that village. I am only a traveler, said Li Kuei, and have hardly time to go to the magistrate. I just happened to kill the tigers on my way, and do not care to go to the magistrate. I will receive the reward here, but even if there is no reward I can leave without it. We do not care to treat you disrespectfully, said Chow, so you must at least wait until we have collected the money to present you. We will send the tigers to the magistrate yamen. Could you first give me a change of clothing? Asked Li Kuei, as these clothes are rather soiled. Old Chow agreed to this and ordered a servant to bring a suit of blue cloth. Li Kuei took the new clothes, and when he had changed he was met outside the door of the hall by many men who also wished to drink a cup of wine with him. One cup of wine was warm, another was cold, and so on. Li Kuei did not suspect any plot, and drank freely with great joviality. He had now quite forgotten Song Jiang's order that he was not to drink wine. It was not very long before he was dead drunk. The men then removed him to a small empty room at the back where they stretched him on a bench, and then bound him to the bench with ropes. The village chief then sent urgent messengers to report the matter to the magistrate's yamen. He also had an accusation drawn up for Madam Li, who accompanied the messenger to the yamen. When the magistrate heard the report he was startled and asked, Where has the Black Whirlwind been arrested? We must not allow this rebel to escape. The messenger and the hunters told him that Li Kuei was imprisoned in old Chow's house in their village. They were afraid that he might escape, and did not dare to try to bring him to the yamen. The magistrate summoned Inspector Li Yun to the court, and instructed him to take a large body of policemen to old Chow's house, and arrest the prisoner Li Kuei, the Black Whirlwind. He was to exercise great care, and be sure that the prisoner did not escape. Inspector Li Yun got together about 30 of his most trusted men, armed them, and departed for the village. The county was only a small place so that everybody knew what was happening. Now the news soon reached the village on the east side of the town where Zhu Gui was living with his brother. Zhu Gui spoke to his brother, that fellow Li Kuei is evidently in trouble. What shall we do to save him? I was specially deputed by Song Jiang to come here and watch the proceedings. Li Kuei will be arrested, but if I do not save his life, how can I go back and face our elder brother Song Jiang? What shall we do? Do not get excited, said Zhu Fu. This Inspector Li Yun is a skilled military man, and 50 men cannot rival him. You and I are no match against him, although we work together on the same plan. We must use strategy and not force. Now Inspector Li Yun is a close personal friend of mine, and every day he has been training me in the use of military weapons. I have a plan, but it will prevent our living in this place anymore. We must boil about 20 pounds of meat, and cut it up into large pieces, and prepare about 10 jars of wine. In both of these we must mix some sleeping drug. About 4 a.m. we must start off with our assistants carrying the food and wine and wait in a quiet spot on the road for Li Yun. When he arrives we must offer him and his men the food and wine as a gift and get them all senseless. Then we can release Li Kuei and escape. That is a splendid plan, said Zhu Gui, and we will get things ready at once. Inspector Li Yun does not drink wine, said Zhu Fu, and as he will only take the drugged meat he will probably recover consciousness before the others. As soon as he finds out how we have deceived him it will not be safe for any of us to stay here. You are an innkeeper here, said Zhu Gui, but you do not make much money. It would be better if you can go with me to Liangshan Marsh and join the brigands there, and get much money, and new clothing, and enjoy life generally. We can tell 2 of your servants to get a cart, load up your valuables with your wife, and send them on in advance to wait for us at a village called Shilapai. Brother, that is a good idea, replied Zhu Fu. He arranged matters accordingly, and it was not long before the cart had started on its way. That evening the 2 brothers boiled the meat and mixed the drug in same. They also prepared the wine in the same way. The whole supply was made up into 2 loads, and they also took about 30 cups with them. The 2 servants and the 2 brothers divided the loads. They got away about 4 a.m. and halted when they came to a quiet desolate spot on the road. It was just dawn when they heard the sound of gongs approaching, and Zhu Gui went forward by himself to meet the party. It was Inspector Li Yun with his men escorting the prisoner Li Kuei, the Black Whirlwind, to the town. Inspector Li Yun was riding a horse in the rear of his party. As they came up to Zhu Fu he called out, "Sir, I request you to stop and accept a little refreshment." He at once offered Li Yun wine while Zhu Gui passed round the meat. Upon seeing this Inspector Li Yun quickly dismounted and hurrying to the front spoke to Zhu Fu, "Friend, why have you come so far as this to entertain us?" "I wish to give you a little comfort," replied Zhu Fu. He saw that Inspector Li Yun was not drinking the wine so he continued, "I am aware that you are a teetotaler, but I particularly request you to take a little liquor this time." Inspector Li Yun did not like to refuse this pressing offer so he took a few sips. Zhu Fu then pressed him to take a little meat, but Inspector Li Yun declined this as he said he had had a big dinner last night. "But you have a long way to go," replied Zhu Fu, "and you will be hungry before you reach your destination. Please take a little at least and so save my face with your men." Here again Inspector Li Yun did not like to cause annoyance by declining the offer, so he ate some of the meat. All the policemen also partook of the wine and the meat, and Zhu Gui even offered it to all the villagers who were following the party. Without making inquiries as to whether it was hot or cold they all set to and had a good feed. They all took it in a happy-go-lucky style, and no questions were raised. Li Kuei seeing Zhu Gui and his brother knew that this was some trick so he said, "Are you not going to give me some of this stuff?" "Why should we?" "You are only a mere criminal," replied Zhu Gui. "You had better shut your mouth as you have not long to live." Just then Inspector Li Yun saw that his men were looking at each other stupidly, and could not move so he exclaimed, "We have been fooled by a ruse." He tried to move, but instead he also fell down, and was soon asleep. Zhu Gui and Zhu Fu seizing their halberds now shouted out, "Let no man depart." Some men however tried to get away, but they were soon caught and killed on the spot. Li Kuei seeing this burst asunder the ropes and taking a halberd went up to Inspector Li Yun to kill him. But Zhu Fu stopped him, "Do not kill him. He is my teacher, and is an extremely good man." "Then let me at least kill that ass, old Chow," said Li Kuei. He went forward and found old Chow, and the wife of Li Kuei, he killed both of them. He also killed the hunters, the village chief, and all the soldiers. He then stripped a soldier of his uniform, and put it on himself. The 3 men then left the scene by a small side path. But Zhu Fu soon stopped and said, "How can I leave like this? Inspector Li Yun was my teacher, but how can he face the magistrate alone when all his men have been slaughtered? He must come to pursue us when he recovers consciousness, and I will wait for him and suggest to him to escape with me and join the bandits at Liangshan Marsh." Zhu Gui said, "Younger brother, what you say is quite true. I will go forward and join the cart. Li Kuei will stop here with you and wait for him. But if Inspector Li Yun will not come with you, then you must not insist on waiting for him." "I agree," said Zhu Fu. Zhu Gui then departed. Zhu Fu and Li Kuei sat down, and after about 2 hours they saw Inspector Li Yun rushing towards them with a halberd in his hand and shouting, "You brigands shall not escape." Li Kuei saw that Inspector Li Yun was furious and fearing that he might strike Zhu Fu, stood up with his halberd to fight with Inspector Li Yun. Liangshan Marsh gains 2 tigers and welcomes and fates 4 men.